Hi there, and welcome to a new Plugin Guru video. My name is John Skippy Limcool. It is the Happy Holidays just before Christmas 2014. This is a special video in a couple different ways. I have a new library about to be released. I want to share the artwork for that. OmniChill. This is chill patches, just warm, beautiful, inspiring, really cool sounds. It's one I love. Chill and ambient dubstep, and there's chill step, and there's even some new age music. I was around when new age was on the radio, so this is the library of sounds, pads, deep sub basses, all that kind of stuff. So that is coming out very shortly, as in a couple days or less, and I'm really excited with it. It came out really great. So in celebration, I've had a couple of customers, actually quite a few, write me at different times in the last 6 months saying, you know what, when you do a library, it'd be really cool if you'd like record some videos of you making the library and sell them. I'll pay you for them, type of a thing. And so during the making of this library, I've made 4 additional videos besides this one. This one is basic synthesis and kind of like how that applies to Omnisphere, since this is a supporting title for an Omnisphere library. So I have created 4 videos. I'll share them with you real quick, that come in a separate thing besides OmniChill. There's the patch library, and then there's going to be this video power tutorial. I haven't come up with the final title of what to call it. But the concept here is like these videos, there's no introduction. Hi, I'm John Limcool and all that kind of stuff. It's just straight into meat and potatoes of doing stuff. In this first video, there's a group called Telepop Music, and they have a really cool song that came out a couple years ago that is still on the radio all the time. And it kind of captured part of the vibe I wanted for OmniChill, and that's Breathe. And so we'll check this out. Sounds bad. So that's actually 4 parts playing simultaneously that I have then taken, and during the course of this next 25 minutes or so, that's what we'll end up with. I'm still building it at the end there because I'm always editing. But in the course of this 20, 30, 25, 27 minutes, how long is it? 28 minutes, 14 seconds. We will take 4 sequenced parts and make the sounds to match them from init patches. So that's one video. Then there's one on Plex. There's one that's really cool on pulsing pads. I think I make 2 different pulsing pads, and the last one is that kind of vibe. It's very cool, very fun to know how to do that. You got to know how to make sub basses and stuff like that. So this video covers making, I think, 2 different sub basses in Have Mod to the wheel, and that guitar is also in the library. So the video with these 5 videos, because there's the 4 that you see here plus the one I'm making right now, will be available as the OmniChill Video Power Pack. And it will have 5 videos that will teach you. This one's the basic of synthesis. And I'm putting this on YouTube entirely for free. I was thinking of doing just like 10 minutes and like, if you want the rest, go buy the library. I was like, I don't work that way. I really don't. That's cheesy. And it's holiday season, so I'm not going to do that. But this will teach you and give you I have some food for thought right here I want to share with you right now. So hopefully you're in the mood. It's Christmas time. You're off work. You can sit there and let something soak in. So get ready to soak. Real quickly before we get to the soaking, I want to point out that this is a video sponsored by my website, pluginguru.com. This is where you go there's so many libraries now. I've been working at this since 2006. And I'm very proud to have a whole bunch of really cool libraries and a whole lot of really happy customers. And if you're not one, please be one. Also, if you want to go to the Facebook page, my customers that like the Facebook page, they will know about this library first, and they will be able to download it probably a day or more before it shows up as a newsletter and it gets out onto the KVR website and all that kind of stuff. The announcement of something coming happens here first, and it becomes available to these guys first. So join my Facebook/plugin guru page. I'm talking about Spectrasonics. They spent a lot of time and effort making all of these video tutorials. If you want more information on the unison mode, if you want more information on oscillator, on LFOs, on the edit page, and it's all here, as well as a really well written manual. They're by far one of the best support companies, being that it's just a fairly small company. Eric Persing and a handful of programmers and some voicing guys, and they've changed the world, and it's great. Very proud of all of them. So here we are with Omnisphere, and it's time for the soaking to begin. So here's the first thing for you to think about and to soak on. This synthesizer, this synthesizer, this synthesizer, and in respects, even this synthesizer, they're all the same. Think about that. They all have envelopes. They all have LFOs. See, envelope, LFO. This has 3 envelopes and it has 4 LFOs. Omnisphere, it's got envelopes right here. The mod actually has 4 envelopes. Even FM8, when you go to the operators and you're looking at these sounds, the next thing down is the envelope. And here's the envelope shape for all of them. So they're all the same. And part of the challenge and part of the fun for me is that a lot of you guys haven't quite caught on to the concept. It's just, where did the chef put the flour? Where did the chef put the eggs? Where did the chef put the milk? It's different in every one of these synthesizers, but it's still milk. It's still eggs. It's still flour. You have these things to work with. Sometimes they have the enriched, highly fortified flour. Omnisphere has this really cool, I don't even know what to call it, flour that can, its envelopes can go from ADSR boring shapes, like your typical analog synthesizer, to something where you can call up all these huge envelope shapes that are just crazy, like, this stuff. And that's an envelope. So they're all the same. The concept of synthesis is really easy to get the basics of, and then it will take you your lifetime to work on to get good at. It's just like piano. There's 12 keys that repeat over and over again to make up octaves. And you will spend the rest of your life trying to play Chopin. It's that application happens with synthesis too. I've been at this for over 25 years. And I've got good grasp on things, but I keep learning new things. I keep coming up and finding new things to do. New synthesizers inspire new capabilities, because you it's like when you go to Berklee School of Music, you learn by notating the solos of all the famous, if you're a sax major, a good friend of mine's a sax major, and she had to notate all the Cannonball Adderley, all the David Sanborn, all these cats. They notated their solos so that they would learn them, so that they could unlearn them and do something else. So all the synthesizers that have come before us have equaled what happens when you look now at Serum. It's got some new concepts, and it's got a cool interface, and it's got some new ways. That's because of progression. But the parameters and things are still the same. Just a little bit different application. So when we're talking about these synthesizers, and when I'm talking about modulating, and you're trying to get the concept of what is modulating, everything modulates. Because what is modulating? In a synthesizer, modulating is changing something. That's it. Modulation wheel, this is a wheel that can change something. When I want to modulate this knob for the cutoff by something, that just means I want this to be changed somehow. And the way it's going to change depends on whether I want to use an envelope or an LFO. And we'll get to that in just a second to talk about. So I want this to soak in. All of these different synthesizers by all of these companies, the form of synthesis that makes the timbre of the oscillator might be different. FM8, it's FM based. So that means you're combining sine waves, and outcomes is just crazy, crazy waveform. But that's still the oscillator. That's still, in a nutshell, this whole box right here is representing just the oscillator and what happens. And more happens here than in most synthesizers. Most of these guys, if you're calling up Serum, it's wavetable based. So you have this waveform that is as complex as you want to make it, and you can put in calculations, and you can load calculations, and you can load samples, and it turns it into a waveform. That's a really complex waveform. If you're dealing with, down here with Omnisphere, on its synth level, it has the basic bread and butters of synthesis for the analog world, but then they give you some cool tools here to change that and make it more complex. The one form of synthesis I didn't show you real quickly that has a really huge place in the world, and I should cover this just for a second, and that's sample based. If you load up something, I'm going to load up the kind of the pinnacle of sample interfaces, and that would be Contact 5 from Native Instruments. So this is sample based, so these are samples. And you can go from that library. So here is George Duke. If you go from here, there's string orchestras, there's brass, Mega Macho drums, my own library of drum kits that have groove player and it follows your sequencer. It's really cool. Film stuff, you can get to just, then there's all these other libraries that don't pay the extra licensing fees that we paid that you can find under your files, and there's the Cineperk, and there's all this it's just crazy. So that sample-based world is its own unique thing because they're the waveform instead of being an analog waveform or a wavetable waveform or so forth. It's full samples. What's cool with Omnisphere is it has a sample playback mode and a synthesizer mode built into it. So when you're choosing what you want your oscillator to be, you have those two universes to work with. And the sample mode is nothing to sneeze at because inside of Omnisphere, when you go to the sound source browser and you say to everything, this is the list of sounds, and it's huge, and it encompasses so many different planets, from recordings of actual synthesizers to special effects to basses to choirs to voices, boys choirs. If you say choir, let's see if we go to the search and we say choir. You have anywhere from full choirs to solos, intervals. I mean, when you get to the choir, there's all sorts of chattering. I mean, everywhere. As well as basses and the organs and sort of some pianos, sort of some strings that you can work with. So the library there is huge. And then the synth engine, which is nothing to sneeze at as well, because you have really great analog synthesis. Let's see, where am I at? I want to be synth based. It's easy to change with the shape from a sawtooth, see the jaggies, to a square. Okay. And then you have symmetry for the phase. And sync, which is... So these are the tools, and there's FM, ring, and the wave shaper is also quite effective for... for changing the sound, but we're still changing what we're going to start with. And I want to get that into your head. These tools allow us to alter this or a sample. There's a wave shaper on the choir. Okay. That is allowing us to get the oscillator to be a set harmonic what we want. And these things, whether it's more normal or it's out there with ring mod, you know, there's all sorts of places to go to change the sound. But this is about changing just the oscillator section. So I hope I'm not losing you guys because I got a little carried away. The synthesizer waveforms or the samples is where you start. And then you have these four areas to modify the sound. And there's some really cool ways you can modify the sound. Watch the videos on the Spectrasonics website. They go into all details of what all these guys do. but these first 4 change the timbre. The 5th one changes how many notes are played at once. It can do it into a unison thing, so you can take this and make it into 8. And you can even shift it up an octave. So those are tools to create the oscillator section to do cool things. Ring, wave shaping, or just leaving it as is. There's little lights right here you can turn on and off. Oh, another Easter egg I wanted to show you. Turn off multiply. Did you know right here you have built in an oscilloscope? So you can actually look at the sound. In fact, if I wanted, I'm going to modulate. I'm going to assign by right clicking the wheel to the sync. So now when I move the mod wheel, and I want the range to be max. Because watch this. Did you know? So I just want to make it this. It's very cool that you can watch the waveform change with the oscilloscope that's built in. They call it a visualizer because it's not quite the full featured oscilloscope. But still, it's very effective and very cool. So again, let's see, let's unmodulate this. So we now have the idea of an oscillator, and there's tools that you can use here to change it to be a more complex oscillator, but it's still just an oscillator. It sits there, it does its thing. If it plays a sample, it's going to be more complex and evolve and do something different. If it's a synthesizer, it's just going to sit there however I set this. Now, this is the fun part. When you start playing with a sound, and you started it at a nit, and you start moving the sliders, you go, wow, that's cool. Wouldn't it be cool if that could be changed? It can. And then you'd go to the wonderful thing with Omnisphere is that it's directly by right clicking, you can say, okay, I want to modulate it, which means I want to change it. How do you want to change it? The LFO or the envelope or velocity. Let's do velocity first. Velocity means that as I play, the harder velocity is going to raise the value, or it can be the other direction. If you take it and reverse these two so that it's already at max, this is what the current slider is at. See how it moves the slider? And this is the intensity, and I'm going to say invert it. So now it's going in the opposite direction. So when I play soft, it's max. When I play harder, it gets darker. So let's go up here and say remove. So let's talk real quickly about envelopes and LFOs. This is what a lot of you guys might not understand. And maybe I can help you understand them. Maybe I can confuse you. We'll see. So if you're playing the sound, I'm changing it. I'm modulating the volume. And then you go, I want to modulate it so that it slowly fades in every time I play a note. Just like me moving the volume slider over here, right? That's where envelopes are really great. Because by just bringing up the amp, which is the volume, and what's great with Omnisphere, and most synthesizers don't have this luxury, is there's a magnifying glass right here which will pop up and let you see the shape of the fade in and change it so that you can make it go in faster or make it really slow until the very end. Okay? So the ability to see this and to be able to change it is wonderful. And then zoom back out just by clicking the magnifier out. So now if you want a sound to be more static, it's just going to go up and maybe go down. That's where sustain comes into play. This is the resting place. Where is it going to rest? It's going to take an attack time to get to some 100% max. In most synthesizers, This right here, the top of the attack is always 100%. And what's nice with Omnisphere, because the envelopes are here that you can zoom into. If I want it to be less than 100%, I just have to click and say, just only go to half the valve. And then start to fade out. And the other thing that's nice with Omnisphere's envelopes is that if I want it to be more complex than this, then all I have to do is right click. And any segment that I select, if I wanted right between here and here, I wanted to have something. When you right click and say add, it adds one always at the middle between those two segments. Like if I say add one right here, it's going to add one in the middle between those two. Let's say remove by right clicking again. So now I can have it go up, down, and let's have it right click again and say add. So I'm making a more complex envelope. Down. And it's going to go back down. And then this very last little tail piece right here is your sustain. When you take your hands off the keys, that's when this dark blue part happens. And a lot of people don't know this, but Omnisphere has curvature for that sustain segment, which is really cool. You could choose it to be more exponential like this, and now drag it back down, and it still has that exponential curve applied. Where this is the type where it goes along and then just dies out. You can also say the other way around like this, and now when you bring it down, it's more natural. Or you could choose anywhere in between. Typically you would have this be more linear. But this way when it fades out and it hits 0, it's kind of dramatic and fast. So bring this up so it's more curved. Now it's more natural. It fades out nicely. So that's for the power guys. You might not know it, but you can change the curvature of the release just by that. So we've got a more complex shape. That's the really cool thing with these envelopes, is they can go from simple to this. It shows that there's a complex by this over here. And if you hit X, it goes back to being simple. And it will stay simple until I come back over here and I add more segments than what it's supposed to have. And then it goes back to being complex again. That is the envelopes. Now LFOs are different. And the way that they're different is that they're going to do something similar to that fade-in shape, but then they repeat, and they repeat, and they repeat, and they repeat. So waveforms played really slow become a low-frequency oscillator because it's a shape that's repeating over and over again. Like if you were to take, let's do this as another visualizer. I hope this is making sense. I'm having a good time. But I want to make sure you understand this. So an LFO is similar to an envelope in that, but I want it to do this. I want it to do the same thing over and over again. And you get into that kind of stuff when you start looking at the waveforms and you choose something like, say, a square waveform. Let's do this. Let's say, and this is another one of those things where it's kind of hidden. You cannot right click to modulate the volume. So here's one where you have to say new modulation routing, and you say I want LFO1, and you go down to amp, and there's amplitude. And for this to work, amplitude has to be 0. And now it listens 100% to the shape. And if we look at this on the oscilloscope, it's full volume and it's gone. Gone, gone. If I, my amp is still fading out to 0, so let's zoom out and say, have this go up to max so that it doesn't fade out any. And let's see how it's on and off. If I change shapes, let's change to, see the shape? You can actually see, it's like you're cranking the volume up and down. Now the difference between some of these is subtle. This is the sine wave. And what a sine wave will give you that's different than a triangle. I'll tell you this. Korg's default waveform shape is triangle. And the default shape in Omnisphere is sine wave. And I personally prefer a triangle because a sine wave is going to go to a certain point and it's going to rest for a little bit. The values right here at the very top of the throw and the very bottom of the throw are very short. So you hear it almost being like a soft square. A triangle, it never rests. When it gets to the top, it immediately starts going back down. So you get more of a natural vibrato. Listen to that compared to a sine wave. Can you hear the difference? It's stronger at the top and bottom of the sine wave than the triangle. So the waveform shape that you choose is important because they have different qualities. Even the sine wave to the triangle has different qualities to how it makes that vibrato sound. And there's times where you want this, and there's times where you want this. It's more subtle with the triangle shape than the sine wave. The sine wave makes it more in your face and clear that. Okay. One of my favorite shapes is the downward pulse, because so much rhythmic stuff happens with. And if we look at this on the oscilloscope, it hits max and then it fades out. Okay, so LFOs are great at doing these different wave shapes, and some synthesizers have more wave shapes to choose from. Some have an infinite number of wave shapes to choose from. Some are simpler and just have one or two wave shapes to choose from. When you start getting into more complex synthesizers, the envelopes in some cases and the LFOs start getting into where they share each other's territory. And that's the case with Omnisphere. If you want this type of a... but maybe you want to do something more complex to it, when you get into the magnifying glass, if you right-click and right-click and right-click and right-click, right? So we got a whole bunch of segments. Let's go over here and instead of LFO, let's say use the amp envelope. So we just changed, this is like a modular synthesizer. I disconnected the cable from the LFO and I've now plugged it into envelope for the amp. So whatever I do to the amp now is going to change the amplitude. Let's turn this down so that we have more noticeable effect. So if I take this and I have this go down and up and down and up. Let's add one more. So it's up and then down. So I'm looking at how this is going to meet that. So they need to be about the same place so it sounds nice. Let's go over here and let's say double time. So it speeds up the playback of all these guys. Double time again. So it just sped this whole thing up. So it's, you know. And what's fun with this is you can do each sound has its own envelope, so they all follow each other. They don't all take on the same shape, which is very cool. Right here, if I click loop, it's now looping. Right? Trying to make it a little. It's looping and fairly smooth, right? So I've just turned this envelope into a more complex LFO. So they've kind of shifted duties because the LFOs only have these wave shapes. You can control how it's triggered and so forth, but you can't change the shape of this waveform anymore. That is what it is. But if you go over here to the envelopes and you turn on loop, you've now made it, by right-clicking a whole bunch of times, a more complex LFO. It's really powerful and unique in that you can do that. And you can save templates, you can take MIDI files. So hopefully you guys are getting it. The LFOs and the envelopes, they let you change values. Like if I wanted to have a filter, bring down the envelope. Okay. If I want to right click on this, I can say modulate. And it's really cool. At the very bottom is the list of all sources. So I'm going to say, I want you to modulate, and I want you to use what's happening to the amp envelope. So I now just told the filter, it's following my amp envelope. So that type of ability to just patch something into something else and have multiple things changed by one thing. If I wanted, let's say, turn on wave shaping. Wouldn't it be cool if I could change that? So let's right click on that and say modulate that with the amp envelope. Now I'm adding noise that comes in and goes out, which is cool. Now, what if I wanted this to be in tempo with my sequencer? Because right now it's not following anything that's going to be very sequenceable. Well, you turn on sync, and now it's listening to the tempo of your sequencer. So if I slow down my sequencer, like now I'm at 100 beats per minute, this is slowed down quite a bit than if it was at 300 beats per minute. Right? So let's say back to 120. There's a really cool button right here called snap that lets you snap these guys so that they snap to the timing value grid that's built into Omnisphere. It's smart enough to know. So I'm going to do this type of thing. It's now synced. I have Mega Macho drums loaded on a separate track, and if I have a groove playing, right? Let's go back to Omnisphere and it's following tempo. Tell you what, we're going to make this a patch and we'll save it in the library because we can do that. So I want to take it, I want to make what should we do to this? Half of the key to synthesis is knowing what you want to do and then knowing how to use these tools to accomplish what you want to do. So in this case, I want to keep it simple, but I want an octave added to it. So I happen to know that unison can easily be set to an octave lower. All right, so I want this. Kind of like that. Now, we are doing a library called OmniChill. And for this to fit into OmniChill, it needs to be put into the OmniChill production values, which is darker, more chill. Right now it's ready for a dance club, you know? So let's do this. Let's take, I'm going to take this envelope and I'm going to copy it. Check out this. Copy the envelope. I'm going to go to Mod 1. I'm going to paste it. So I have the same thing. That's, it's set legato. Let's set this to be, oh, that it can't be. Okay. So we have, this should be set to note because that's the same as here. Okay, so I set up unison. Got a cool octave. take the intensity of both that and Wave Shaper down a bit. Okay, and on layer B, let's add something else. Let's have it be synth based. Let's have a LFO just pulse. Do a really cool little pulse. So we're gonna go over here and say new and have, is it LFO 1? Yep, LFO 1 to the amp volume. And we need to turn on sync, so it syncs to our computer, to everybody else that's happening also inside of Omnisphere. And let's say 8th notes. Now, okay, now we've talked about this a little bit, but this filter is very powerful in that it has a whole bunch of different presets, including some really cool like dual high pass and instead of free, let's set to notes. This is where this trigger mode becomes really important. If it's set to free, it ignores when you play a note. If you set it to song position, then it's going to only follow the sequencer, but might not trigger the right time for you when everything else is happening here. So. Now it's high pass filter, which means that there's always high frequency remaining. It's filtering out anything below the high pass point. I don't want that. I want it to be a low pass filter. So let's go over here, go low pass. And I think I double timed that a couple times, right? I'm going to go halftime once, so it slows down at halftime. That's going to be... Let's work with that. And here's where curve is really cool. If you right click on this, you can change these to be different curve shapes, and then you can drag to change the curve shape. Add one more in here. I liked what it was doing before. So let's get rid of what I did. Remove. Let's just play the time a little bit. I like that. Let's take this envelope and copy and apply it to the amp for this other part, for that synth part that's playing. So we say paste, and we want it to also be linked and looped and synced. thinking what I'm thinking, this sound needs to be more interesting. I kind of went out of the scope of my synthesis class, so I don't know. Hopefully this helps. It's very easy to get carried away. Let's use Harmonia. I like Harmonia, and I'm using that for this oscillator because I want to have some nice octave up detunings, and I want to pan everything differently. And I'm going to do this. I want this to also be modulated with that LFO1. Maybe less resonance. Turn on A. That's cool. Okay, nice and dark, chill. Maybe we'll do this. Let's make it more in tune to start, and then right click and say with the wheel, do that. I can also make it brighter. And this I want to make brighter a whole bunch. So we say modulate with wheel. So I'm setting up quickly things to modulate to the mod wheel. So again, it's about change. And this time, instead of using an LFO or an envelope, I'm setting it to something that I control in real time. So I can modulate just by moving the mod wheel. So all the synthesizer is basically, to keep it simplified and in the theme of what I was trying to talk about in the first place. You have the oscillator, you have the filter, you have volume. You can control three things. You control the volume, the brightness, and the pitch of the sound. We're not doing anything with pitch right now. Don't want to. But we could easily say have the pitch falling down or something like that. Those are the components that you basically can change. And then all around those blocks, you have your LFOs and your envelopes, modulation, velocity, all that. When you see this list of modulate, here's your LFOs. What's cool with Omnisphere is there's random and alternate, which random makes it so each time you play, it's a different value, and you can control how strong you want the random throw to be, which is wonderful. Then you get into key tracking. So as you go up and down the keyboard, you can have it get brighter, get louder, get softer. Filter envelope, amp, here's your 4 envelopes. The orb is over on the main page. Modulation wheel, aftertouch, pitch bend, breath controller, foot control, sustain, the soft pedal. So you have down here, you have also user CC. By the way, if you want to use that, that's over here on the system page. Okay, so as you can see, we have the ability to control all sorts of things with the envelopes and the LFOs. That's why there's all these cool sliders for these different parts. When you turn them on, they're going to change things to the sound. And now it's just about setting up the LFOs and the envelopes and modulation wheel to do what you want it to do. So on top of all of this, the one fun part, kind of outside of the scope of the synthesis, is effects. And here you have an effects section that is really powerful, and you can learn more about it on the Spectrasonics website through their videos. Basically, A goes to layer A, B goes to layer B, and I've talked about this in other videos. So you can have just a reverb. Let's say go down here to the proverb. Just have a reverb on this part, but this part's dry. Maybe on this part, on A, I want a delay, and of course echo delay. Let's say quarter notes. feedback. One cool thing on page 2 of the Chorus Echo, and most of them, is a tone, which I'm going to bring this down so it kills more high end. Now, included inside of the OmniChill library is this. It's right now called Bassbox, but I'm going to come up with like the Plugin Guru Cool Racks or some name. And these will all be included. And down here are all these mix settings, which can quickly give you just a completely different huge sound. So let's use the Plex Synth delay verb and... So I think look down here at the wheel to unison detune, it's too much. I want the resonance to go away. So let's go modulate with the wheel and invert it. And see how there's a little red line that shows up at the bottom of resonance right here? You can set your strength so that it hits 0. So that keeps it less cloudy when the mod wheel is brought up, and I want it to get brighter. I want them both to start darker, so let's go here, wheel to cut off. Now, what if we wanted it? No, let's stop right there, because there's so much you can do. Part of the key with synthesis is knowing when to stop and when to just say, you know, that's cool, just like it is. That'll work. Okay, so we made a sound. So we'll save it. This will be called some. Let's see if we go save patch. We'll call it BPM synth. Tutorial adventure, and I want to put this into, by the way, if you're making sounds with Omnisphere, one thing is it goes into the user library and you want to determine what folder to put it into, and this will be synth poly. And it's important to do that because that will tell it what overview attributes to call up. If you put it into choir, then it says what kind of choir are you singing and stuff. So you want to tag it right. And I'm just going to say the top options for this right now. And then I'll come back and finalize it later instead of during this video. And words. And this will be in the library. Okay? So, Tutorial Adventures is the path we made. So, I want to make it really clear. I kind of got off on a tangent a little bit because that's kind of what I do. Sorry. But you have two options for the waveform shape. You have 4 controls down here to change that waveform shape or the synth actual sample wave shape to get the timbre, the lump of ice cream before you put anything on it and before you do anything to it. That's what these options here are for. Okay? And then from here, you can turn on the filter. And you can use filtering. The envelope is always at max, so you want to bring that down if you want to just hear, because when you first turn on the filter and this is down, this is up, it always fades out because the default shape on the default song, the default shape on the default factory patch has the envelope filtering down to nothing. If you bring this all the way up, now, but then you go, that doesn't do anything. That's because the envelope is up. So bring the envelope value down. And now it works like you expect for a filter. And now it's just a matter of deciding what do you want to do to the sound. If you're trying to go for a certain type of sound, you would set up the envelope a certain way. If you want it to be a pad, slow down the attack, slow down the release. And now it's simple. If you want it to be more complex, go over here and turn on multiply. Okay. And I ran out of voices because with a pad you need to play chords. Here's your voices of polyphony. I usually set this to 24 for pads. And you go, I want to play with samples. So go over here, hit the sample button. Let's say human voices. That might be fun. Voice choir. Okay. So I've changed from a synthesizer waveform to samples, but the unison is still turned on, and it's still going through the slow shape and a dark filter. I can bring the filter up if I want to get more airy. I'm going to show you a really cool trick. Are you ready for this? This is fun. The detune has a cool second option here called coarse, where instead of being fine-tuned, like, right? Go to coarse. And you can do all your THX kind of stuff. So, if we were to assign this, modulate this to the mod wheel, let's say, and bring the value all the way up. Just FYI, every time you modulate something, the default strength is always 50%, not 100%. So you want to go over here and click the strength knob and bring it up. And play the mod wheel. More depth, less detune. Now, here's an example. What if I wanted it to be really bright? Well, the fastest way to do that is to go to the effects rack presets that are going to be included and go down here and find something like Black Hawk delay verb. And it comes with EQ. Maybe I don't need chorus. That's kind of cool sound. Okay, let's save this too. So we made 2 sounds for the library. So save patch, and this is box epic phase choir, and they have a category down here called human voices. Save, and you can determine what is airy and fuzzy. The gender, this is choir, so it's men and women, male, female. Technique, what they're saying. Oz, genre. What styles do you want to use it in? Author, me. Complexity, kind of medium. And words, which I will fill out. Boom. We've saved a new sound. So you see how easy it is to make things and how easy it is to modulate. And modulate is not a scary word. It's not a bad word. Modulate means you're changing it. And how you change it determines on whether you want to use an LFO, whether you want to use an envelope, whether you want to assign it to a slider or to the user CC if you have a bigger keyboard controller and you want another knob to change something different than the mod wheel. It's easy to set up. And now you're rolling. And then it's just a matter of just thinking what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, I'll tell you this. Go init patch, go down to samples, and start going, let's see, turn off all the categories so it's all wide open, and just start going. Go down the list somewhere and jump in. And I guarantee you, you will find things that you... Hey, that's cool. Start programming. It's that easy, really. So, have fun. Happy New Year's. Merry Christmas. This video, again, is inside of the power pack of videos that comes with the OmniChill video power pack. Make sure you pick up OmniChill if you want these sounds. They are going to be inside of this library. There you go. There you have it. Some food for thought. All synthesizers are the same. They're just the compartments where they put the flour and the sugar and the eggs are in different places. So that's what your job is to figure out. And once you understand that stuff, then you get into finding the unique things and you start having fun. That's the joy of synthesis. Okay. So I'm out of here. Happy New Year. Thanks for your support through the year. And we'll see you next year. All right. See you later.